Hello and welcome back to the show. My name is Richard Matthews, of course, and I'm on the line with Ashley Cheeks. Ashley, are you there?
Hi, Richard. I'm here.
Awesome. So glad to have you here. You are one of our Hero Challenge guests. Robbie Tour asked you to come on the show. So glad to have you here. Let me do a brief introduction so people know who you are, and then we'll jump right into it. So you are the founder of Written Success, which you've had over 300 business plans written to date. You specialize in helping high potential entrepreneurs create their $1 million business plan with strategies that help reduce startup failure and lead to investor and lender funding. The largest deal raising you've done so far is $550 million for a startup venture, which sounds really amazing. So first question, what is it that you're known for now? Why do people reach out to you? Why do they come to you? What is the thing that you offer the market?
Sure. So I am, in the simplest terms, a business plan consultant. So what I do is help people create business plans that somebody would pay $1 million to get their hands on. So a business plan that walks to success and that actually is a roadmap you can follow to create a really high power business for yourself. And sometimes that's an invention related business or a product or service. Whatever it is, that business plan is your vehicle to making it a reality.
Awesome. So my next question then is about your origin story, right? Every hero has one, right? How they got started, where they came from, where you sort of started to realize that you could really help people with this. How did you get into this business? What sort of drove you from, start getting into this whole entrepreneur journey and then eventually into helping people write business plans?
It was definitely a little bit of an accident. I wanted to be a writer first and foremost. And when I first got started, I was reaching out to different freelancing agencies to see if I could work. And long story short, I ended up working with a really amazing business plan firm. And on the side, while doing that, I was also still working 9 to 5 in corporate and raising 2 young kids and juggling it all. So, but right around there, I started realizing that business proposals and writing business plans was really interesting. And even though it was not writing a romance novel or anything, it was something that I was loving, and I loved the research, and I loved the mystery, and bringing this business idea to reality on paper. And it really became something that evolved from that side work in the beginning.
So it started as like wanting to be an author, and then you just got into and realized that like writing for like real stuff was more exciting.
Uh, yes and no. So the actual pivot point. So I was freelancing for the sake of secondary income. There was a moment where I had been going through my career in corporate, and my last employer was General Electric. And so I worked for GE as a business proposal writer. So I was actually doing what I love to do 9 to 5, finally, in addition to freelancing. And I was really good at it. And I had done this for several companies, and I had gotten progressively better at it. However, personally, my life was taking a bit of a turn. So my husband and I were told that our 9-month-old son had a permanent brain disorder, and it put us in a position where we needed to figure out solutions for therapy and childcare and just all the things that come with having a special needs child.
Mm-hmm.
And so the moment where one day I went into my manager's office, and they said, "Hey, you can't keep leaving on your lunch break to take your son to therapy." That was kind of the moment where I said, well, you just made this a really easy decision for me. And so I went and I created my own business plan to leave and to start Written Success in a way that would sustain me financially, because I was the breadwinner. And at that time, I wasn't sure if I could make my own business work. And it was only through creating my own business plan that I felt confident enough to actually take that leap. And I did. And I ended up quitting that job and working full time with Written Success. But it wasn't necessarily that I wanted to be a writer and then I decided that business plans was more sensible. It was definitely a rock bottom moment emotionally on, what's more important? Is it going to be stability of a paycheck, or is it going to be time and flexibility to support my kids? and my son. And it ended up working out very well in the end, thankfully. But that was kind of the path it took.
It's a rough decision to have to make, and it's interesting um, how often you have to make those kind of decisions, right? When you're choosing to stay at a job or start an entrepreneur like journey, and it doesn't always work out as well. But it sounds to me like you have a good product to bring to market that um, it turned out really well for you. Especially you mentioned you had a one of your clients you raised $550 million for with their business plan.
Yeah, the fundraising side of what I do, I'm not a broker, so I don't actually connect entrepreneurs with investors and promise funding, but I do connect them with avenues to access investors. So there's a whole legal reason why I can't call myself a broker, but basically, when entrepreneurs hire me to support writing their business plan, they're almost always looking for funding. And sometimes that's with a bank and sometimes with an investor. But in the end, their goal is fundraising. And so a
Mhm.
lot of what I've started dabbling into is pulling that corporate experience and training sales teams on how to close deals and how to take a proposal and pitch it in a way that sells. I'm translating that into helping entrepreneurs sell their ideas to investors and to bankers. And it's led to my opportunity to actually be a pitch consultant for several investor networks. When Kevin Harrington takes entrepreneur pitches on Pitch Investors Live, I'm the one that coaches those entrepreneurs before they go on the show. And
That's super cool.
it's been an amazing experience. So anyway, those deals sometimes translate into really, really big financing opportunities. And a lot of my clients end up securing some pretty big amounts of money. And most of my clients have really innovative ideas. So part of the reason the amounts are so big are because they have these like game changing, market creating inventions, concepts, apps, just these things that are going to revolutionize a space and be a disruptor. And those
Nice. Yeah.
kinds
So
of,
disruptive technology.
yeah, those businesses
So
always are big money businesses.
so I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask this or not. If I can't, just let me know. How do you get compensated for that kind of consulting work? Do you end up with like percentages, or do you have like flat fees? How does that work?
Oh, I love that you asked that question. So I can't take a percentage of a closed deal without being a broker. So that's part of why I'm very careful to announce that I'm not a business broker,
Hmm.
because the SEC will fine me for misrepresentation. Um, I do not take equity in my clients' businesses at this time. That is not something that I feel ethically aligned to do.
Hmm.
Part of my value is when I do your business plan, I'm unbiased. I have no personal stake in it. And I'm just here to get your idea as clearly and successfully on paper as possible. The minute that I become a business partner to you, I now have a personal stake in this and my perspective changes. And
Hmm.
my husband has multiple businesses, and as his business partner, I feel the difference with his business plans when I work on them versus a client. So it's something very important that I stay unbiased and dismissed from the business itself when I work with clients, and I get
Yeah.
reimbursed on the business plan, on building your business plan. I give you advice, I connect you with money wherever I possibly can, but I don't take a piece of your company and I don't take a percentage of the money that you get from your investor.
Awesome. So it's just like a flat fee type of thing that happens ahead of time before they go and pitch.
All they're paying for is the business plan. If they get something amazing as a result of my connection, that emotional, feeling of yay, I connected them with a good deal, that's all I take. I don't take any funding. I don't play
Cool.
games with that stuff. Yeah.
So when someone hires you, they're hiring you for the actual like piece of paper at the end, as well as like the actual coaching that you're going to do for presenting that plan to someone else.
You got it. Yeah. So I'll sometimes that does include actually rehearsing the pitch verbally and in person and actually dry running it. Sometimes that even includes me being in the investor meeting with them as a support person and helping them pitch this business plan to the investor. But yeah, it's all about that document. The business plan is the deliverable, and everything else around it is ancillary. And it's not something that I'm not charging for as a percentage of anything. It's extra.
Okay. So this is a little bit of a change of direction, but it's something I'm interested in since you do these all the time. One of the things I've always think about when I help and work with clients on their products that they're bringing to market, because like one of the things I do is I help experts like build educational courses and then bring those to market, right? So it's small, very niche stuff. It's not disruptor kind of things, but it's generally 6-7 figure, small businesses run by one or two people that we help bring educational courses to the market. And I always tell my clients that if you want to have a successful educational product, you have to find a market who has money and then solve a problem for them in an elegant way, right? So essentially the pieces are you have a market who has the income and have a problem that they want to get solved, and you have an elegant solution for them. How accurate is that for when you're getting into big disruptive markets, that they have to do the same kind of things? They have to have a market that they're looking for. They have to have a product with an elegant solution. Like, is that the same kind of thing when you're talking about big markets?
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's the red ocean concept. Have you heard of blue ocean strategy?
I have.
Okay. It's that. So no matter what it is that you're trying to sell, there's usually a unique way to meet a market demand that's currently untapped. And I love the way you phrase that, an elegant solution, delivering it in a way that's so attractive and that is so perfectly meeting the need. You really need to find that no matter how big or small your solution is. And not everybody's trying to launch, the next multi-million-dollar business. They just want something that's successful and that meets a specific niche. And that's usually the best type of business, because that's where you're going to find the lowest amount of competition. That's where you're going to really find dedicated customers that sing your praises, because you're really the only one offering something to the caliber and quality that you are, and making sure that your message is not only pure, but is so unique that nobody could replicate it if they wanted to. That's a very, very powerful thing to have in your business. And you have to have that before anything else if you want to be successful.
Interesting. So do you represent a lot of like service type businesses, or are they like physical products? What do you tend to end up with?
It's been a really, really diverse mix. So in the very beginning, I thought, well, maybe I'll only support restaurant startups, or, maybe I'll only support mobile app development. But over time, I get people, I haven't done the same business plan twice. And everything is custom to the business idea, because the business ideas are all so unique. So I have everything from, I have a client that's currently launching an indoor rainforest preserve. It's an Amazon rainforest replica, and it's like a theme park educational center. It's crazy. And it's, just massive, 40 stories, okay. And then there's, clients that are doing things like, health and wellness apps. And there's other clients that are trying to create safer driving schools for kids that are learning to drive. And then there's people trying to open up food trucks, literally food trucks. And so I definitely help people from all walks of life.
Sorts of different stuff.
Yeah, lots and lots of different industries.
It's always amazed me when you look at the breadth of entrepreneurship, like what it covers, and you realize that there's pretty much everything you see and interact with on a daily basis, no matter what it is. There's an entrepreneur behind it somewhere.
Yeah.
Who made it happen. And it's really fascinating to talk to someone like you who gets to see all those like happen.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm not a very creative person, meaning I'm not inventive. I would have never invented the remote control. That's not my gift. But I do have a gift for recognizing great ideas. And so when people come to me, one of the first things they say is this a good idea? And there's always a way to make something work. So I feel very fortunate that I can work with so many brilliant people, because I could never come up with those ideas, but I sure as heck can help you figure out how to get it to market in a successful way, because this is too good for you not to be successful with it. Let's figure this thing out. Let's get this to market and get this in people's hands. So it's really a fun business to be in. It's crazy mind-blowing most days, the stuff people come up with.
So that's a really good transition to my next question, which is your superpower, right? It's what you do or build or offer that really helps solve problems for people. Whatever you use to slay your client's villains, so to speak. If you could narrow it down, what would you say your superpower is when you're helping clients build these plans?
I definitely have a superpower in my listening skill set. When people come to me with their ideas, they usually have ideas that are really disjointed and that are a bit all over the place. Or maybe it's clear up here until they say it out loud, and then it's like, that sounded better in my head, but now that I'm saying it out loud, that doesn't sound like a good idea. However, I can hear the idea, I can hear the intent behind it, and I can hear what you didn't say, but what you definitely feel in how you say it. And we can work together on that vision, and we work it out and get it refined and get it tuned in a way that is destined to be clear on paper. So most of the problem with a business is that they don't have a clear plan or a clear description of the business itself. And so getting all that on paper, refining it out, working on the research, working on the financial projections, and getting through all the extra steps that come after that idea formulation. That's what I help with. But you can't build a business plan if you don't know what your idea is clearly, concisely. So I definitely help with getting that piece out, and it's something that I've found is somewhat of a unique skill set.
It reminds me of something that I have happen regularly. You ever like wake up in the morning and you're like, you had a really great dream, and you're like, oh, that would be like a great story or a movie or a business plan or whatever. And then like when you finally actually are like completely awake and you remember it, you're like, wow, that was really not a great idea. Like
Yes.
it could be if you refined it and made it good. But like I feel like that's what you do. Like people are like, I have this really great idea and it feels good in my head.
Yes.
And then it comes out and you're like, oh, maybe it's not. But it could be, right? It's the potential, it's the seed, it's the diamond before it's been, what do you call that? When they compress it and turn the coal into a diamond.
Yes, with the pressure. It's funny because a lot of people will take that idea in its unrefined form and they'll start telling their friends or their family about it. And then it gets shot down immediately. And their friends and family are like, that's a crappy idea. That's horrible. And then the entrepreneur believes that feedback and they go, oh, guess that's a bad idea. And in reality, it's not a bad idea. We need to refine it. You just need to tease it out a little bit differently and with a different approach. And it's probably an amazing multi-million-dollar idea. But if you're explaining it to the wrong person, it can destroy all semblance of it. Just like when you tell that dream to somebody out loud, when you say it to them, they can't grasp the beauty of it because they weren't in it and they didn't feel what you felt when you experienced it. And you can't articulate it clearly enough for them to get it. So it doesn't make it
it's all like feelings and impressions in your head, and you try to
yes.
describe it and it's not like you can't do it justice.
Yeah, there's no way. So you've got to have the right listener to hear it and feel what it is that you felt. And that makes all the difference.
So how much effort do you have to put into helping entrepreneurs understand the difference between an idea and how an idea is not valuable until action has been taken and like an actual business has been built and a product has been brought to market, right? Where the idea is required, but it's not valuable until you've done something with it. How much do you have to do coaching on that kind of stuff?
A ton. I mean, that's the coaching aspect of what I do is probably 50% of the work, because a lot of it is around mindset and just kind of helping them deconstruct their limits. So for instance, they'll say, I think I only need 100,000 to launch this. And I'll talk to them more. And I'm thinking, I think you need like 1 million to launch this properly, but I don't want to assume. Let's talk through why you think it's 100. And then you find out they think it's 100,000 because that's all they feel like they could raise.
Mm-hmm.
That has nothing to do with what they need to raise. And a lot of what we talk about working together is really what is the best path forward to getting to that goal, and understanding where you can go to get what you need and how you can take the next path forward. Because half of what a business plan is meant to do is become your feasibility study and confirmation of proof of concept. And so when you follow it, you've already determined this is a great idea. It's feasible. There's a market for it. There's profit to be had. And then here's your operations section. Here's how you're going to execute this based on all the research you've done and vying out the market space you're targeting. But you have to prove feasibility, and then you have to actually invest into your idea and start taking baby steps towards making it more than just an idea and making it an actual tried concept that you've proven and validated. So it's a huge piece of the process.
Yeah, you have to actually like an idea without that step, right? The part where you're actually taking action and doing something and bringing something to market, or as what is his name, Seth Godin, you have to ship, right?
Yes.
If you don't ship, you just have an idea. Nobody pays for ideas.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes it's as simple as even little things like sending out a survey. Google surveys is free to a point, and just getting customer feedback or getting feedback from the masses on what they would like in this kind of a product and using that as guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Doing a pop-up and selling things for just a few days to see what people say about it and if they like it, if it needs to be tweaked. Little stuff that's not a huge investment. It goes a long way in taking that next step towards launching, but you have to act. You have to do something if you want this to become a reality.
Absolutely. So I want to switch and talk about the other side of your superpowers, which is the fatal flaw, right? Superman has his kryptonite. Batman's not actually a superhero, or doesn't have any superpowers anyways. If you had to think through something that has either held you back or you've struggled with in building your business and getting to the point we're at now, what would you say it is? And more importantly, what have you done to sort of help fix that or rectify it so that it doesn't hold your business back?
I don't think I've ever told anybody this, but it's really the idea that just because I can do something doesn't mean that I should. I have a really bad problem of over delivering, and I'm sure that stems from something psychological with having to prove myself as a child or something, but it's really hard for me. If I see something that I can do, it's hard for me to just decide not to do it. For instance, if I create a video and I say, okay, now I'm going to go edit it, I don't have to do that. I can do production. I don't have to, though. There's no reason why I need to spend my time on that, even though I can. Or when I'm doing a business plan, if a client is interested in taking a pivot into a slightly different industry, instead of saying, hey, you know what, that's kind of a different business plan and I can't create a second one for free, what I'm learning to do is say, hey, you know what, if we want to start a second project, we can, but I'm not going to go down that path and create a second version of this for you without, compensation or deciding this is what we want to do. So having those boundaries is everything, because that way I'm spending time on what matters, what's important, and finding that work-life balance so that my kids are a priority, my husband and my marriage is thriving, and I'm not dying in all of the work that I'm taking on, because I tend to do that. I'm not a workaholic, but I'm passionate about my work. And so it's hard for me to not do what I love, especially when it comes to helping people and reach their goal. I always have to kind of pull back a little bit and not overdo what it is I'm contributing beyond what is reasonable to contribute.
Yeah, and I've talked to a couple of entrepreneurs, myself included, that have a similar problem, where if I could narrow it down, I would say it's a lack of respect for ourselves, right? Where we'll set out our initial scope and then allow, I call it scope creep, because that comes from from developing software, right? You know, just feature creep. We're just adding more things to it. Yeah. And we allow that to happen to ourselves because we can help them, because we enjoy what we do, because we love what we do. And if you really respected yourself and your time and your value, you wouldn't do it, right? And the same thing, like for myself, and I know I have that same problem where I'll be like, I'll help them with this thing and then the other thing and then the other thing, and then, like, 10 ways down the road. And I've the way that I've dealt with it is I will set like is because I'll tell people ahead of time that I'll do this with them. I'm like, what's going to end up happening is I'll end up helping you with a bajillion different things. So I set up retainer relationships. And I was like, if you want to be in a retainer relationship, I don't have a problem giving you my hours to do those things. Because like I just sort of set up my payment structure so that it was okay for me to do that with clients.
And that can be a hard pivot to make as an entrepreneur, especially if you're service based and you're used to project based work. So that's a really amazing turn that you took, going into a retainer based relationship with your clients. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So I've only done that with a few clients, but it's like the ones that I'm like, I really love what they're doing, and they're the kind of people like you mentioned that are like constantly coming with ideas and doing cool things, and I'm like, I'm not that person. I'm not the idea person. I'm the I can take your idea and help you implement person.
Yes.
And because I can in all those areas, I will. And I was like, I can't, like, we did the payment based thing at the front, and I'm like, I would run out of steam because I can't continue to help you with these things and not get paid, because then I can't feed my family and hang out with my kids and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So when I can, I try and make the transition into a retainer-based relationship so I can allow myself to do that while still respecting my time and that kind of stuff. So anyways, I've been there.
Yeah. It's a hard place to be in, but it sounds like you found the right balance. I'm still working on my balance, but it's definitely a good problem to have. I'm grateful that that's the issue
Yeah.
that I'm struggling with.
Yeah, it's not a problem that's going to kill your business. I mean, you could let it kill your business if you got to a point where you were like, you took on so much business you couldn't deliver. Um,
Which that is always a constant battle too. Thankfully I adopted pretty early on a slot system, so I have slots, and if my slots are filled, they're filled, and I always have a waiting list because of that. However, um, I learned to be okay with, if they have to wait, it's okay. I can only do so much. I can only do so many hours, so many business plans. It just is what it is. So there was a time where I would take on way more than I should have, and I've learned the hard way. I have to honor my time, like you said, and respect, what I can and can't do
yeah,
in 20 hours a week or 40 hours a week or 60, 80, 90, 120 hours a week. So I got to sleep in
yeah.
there somewhere.
I had the same kind of thing where I set up slots, and like before I was like I had 4 slots and it was it, and I was like, I've only got 4 slots, I can't help you. And so I
Yeah.
had a waiting list of people, and like one of my mentors was like, he did a ass kicking session is what I call it. He was like, you need to hire some people and build some processes so you can open up more slots and help more people. So that's one of the things I've been working on this year, and now I've got it up to like I think 8 slots
That's
that I've got
awesome.
room for. I think I've only got 6 of them filled, but either way, I've hired a couple of employees and was able to move some stuff out. But yeah, it's like if you want to increase the number of slots, you realize that you can't continue to put 120 hours a week into something and still live your life. So you have to look at other ways to scale.
Yeah.
If you want to scale, right? You don't have to, right? It's one of those, like, I've got my business doing what I want, but if you want to scale, there's stuff you have to do.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because a lot of people, they are so ambitious, and they forget to pause and say, I reached my goal. Let me sit in this for a minute and then decide if I want to keep going. I know I hit that and I was like, well, I don't necessarily want employees. I think that part of the flexibility in what I do is not having a team to report to. And I'm happy with, I reached the goals that I set for myself, and now I need to just enjoy that and be happy with what I did, and until the next goal comes up, and then I'll chase that. But for right now, it's learning to just enjoy what I built and enjoy what I've set up for my family. So
Yeah, that's an interesting place to be. Um, I remember a few years ago, I had set my business up, and I was looking at a financial goal. I was like, I wanted to hit that goal, and I hit a goal before that, and I realized that like I didn't need any more money than that. I was like, I wouldn't know how to spend it if I had more.
yeah,
So and then I realized it wasn't about the income that I was trying to get. It was sort of like a meaningless goal. Um, and so I started instead focusing on like the types of people I wanted to work with and the type of output I wanted to have. And what's interesting is then like after doing that, making that transition from focusing on the monetary goal to focusing on the the quality of output and that kind of stuff, I hit that
yes.
other goal like accidentally.
The money tends to follow.
Yeah.
As long as your priorities are in the right place, it definitely is everything. And I know for me, it's a time thing, time and flexibility to do, if I need to, at noon, go on a bike ride instead of being at a meeting. And nine
Yeah.
times out of 10, I'm at my desk at noon. But point is, I could, if I wanted to, go take that bike ride. And I have on occasion, just to, flex my executive powers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
After
definitely important to know your perspective.
after this podcast, I'm taking my kids to the zoo here in the town we're in. We, to your point of flexibility, we travel full time, right? So we're in an RV and we travel around the country. We're in
Beautiful.
Fresno, California right now, and I generally will work in the mornings and we take the afternoon off to go explore, right?
I
Because
love
I
it.
think the flexibility is the most important part of my business.
Yes, 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 yes. And the fact that you're taking advantage of it is everything, because a lot of entrepreneurs will fill all of their free time with work because we're
Mm-hmm.
passionate people, but you have to create that life balance that you wanted for yourself in the very beginning and keep it in perspective. That's awesome.
Yeah, I call it a permission to play. You have to give
There you
yourself
go.
permission to play. And realized I've talked to a couple of people on this podcast that are like neuroscientists and like much smarter than I am, and like how important play and recreation is to your ability to be creative and to deliver well,
It is.
and how much we as entrepreneurs tend to ignore that need we have, right, to play and to recreate, to recharge so that you can come back and be creative. And one of the things that I've realized over the past couple of years since I sort of made that change is like 3 years ago, I was putting in 18 hours a day and putting out half the output I'm doing now at lower
Yes.
quality.
Yes.
right? And now in 20 hours a week, I can put out 3 times as much stuff with my clients at higher quality and better speeds and
Yeah.
get better results for them. And I can play, right? Which is, so it's like win-win all the way around.
Yeah. There was a moment where I thought, well, I can either go and take a class on public speaking and do a Toastmasters type of a thing, and really develop that skill when I was trying to begin speaking in my speaking career. And I thought, or I can go and do improv comedy classes. And I was like, well, that would be so much more fun,
It's awesome.
wouldn't it? And that would be so creative. And so I took that path. I was like, okay, now I'm not a funny person, so don't let me be misrepresentative there. But it was a way to incorporate, like, let me just go have a really good time and just be funny and silly and, relax a bit and still learn to create that stage presence. But if you don't work those things in, you can drive yourself crazy with the work, and, you got to make sure that you're building the fun in there. I love that playtime concept.
Absolutely. So my next question for you is about your common enemy. Common enemy, I want you to think about it like this. When a client hires you
Mhm.
and you start work with them, if you had a magic wand that you could just sort of like erase something that they're struggling with that you see regularly with your clients, what would that be? What do you think holds your clients back most often, that if you could just get rid of it, you could immediately get them better, faster, more impressive results?
Without fail, every single one of my clients that is willing to confide in me when we talk, they have somebody in their life, in their past, maybe just a voice in their head that says they can't do it. And it's definitely a mix of fear and doubt and lack of self-belief in their own potential. And I know that sounds fluffy, but when you're building a business and when you're launching this entrepreneur lifestyle, you have to believe you can freaking do this, that no matter what comes at you, no matter what presents itself as a problem, you will be able to conquer it if you just stay diligent and stay positive and stay focused. There are no limits. Most people, like I mentioned before, have limiting beliefs on, I can only make so much money or raise so much money or do so much or grow so much. And they constrict themselves and their potential with those beliefs. So if I could just get rid of that, every single one of my entrepreneurs would be a glowing success story. And most of them are a success story. I don't want to be incorrect in stating that, but all of them would without a doubt be a success story if they just had that unwavering sense of, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, there's no ceiling, there's no limit, anything is possible. No amount of money scares me. No competition out there intimidates me. I can do it if I decide I'm ready to do it.
Yeah, that's such an important like thought process too. And I know I lucked out. I grew up with a dad who basically, every day of my life told me anything I put my mind to, I could do. Um, and so like I don't have like the emotional baggage of thinking that I can't do it, but I have the imaginative like limitation where I'm like, I can't imagine making more than 150K a year or 200K a year, or $100,000 a month or whatever it is, where it's like, and I think some of that is just like, I know other people do it, but I can't see it in my own life. So it's hard to imagine it. Like it's really hard to visualize something that you have no concept of.
Yeah.
So like that's where I see that struggle in my life, where it's like, okay, I could do that, like, and I believe it here, right? I could do that here, but like, how do you get that down here, right? How do you get it to your heart, where you're like, I actually can take action on something and move forward that way? Because you have limiting beliefs, and in my case, just a limited imagination.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people, it's they don't know what they want. So for some people, it's not a money thing, and they don't. I mean, $1 million a year doesn't really bring that much value because they can't imagine what they
Yeah.
would do with it. However, if you said, "Hey, you could have a life where you could never worry about money, whatever that amount is, and you only work 5 hours a week," for some people, that is a dream. They would love that, but they can't imagine. They can't imagine what that would even look like. But they would definitely maximize every minute. They salivate on the idea of having ownership of their time like that. And as long as
Yeah.
that statement doesn't end in "but I can't" or "I could never," as long as they don't have those limits, they could figure out a way to get to that destination. Definitely.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that like I realized in my life is that the money wasn't that exciting, but the time freedom and the location freedom were, and was able to make that happen. So it's like what you put your mind to, you get. And yeah,
Yeah, it's huge. Do you do any
definitely
law
really
of
interesting.
attraction type of following, or do you have a belief system that you leverage?
Um, I have not followed the law of attraction stuff. Like I don't do like the meditation and the visualization stuff. I probably should. But it's more like I figure that if I want it and I am willing to fight for it, I can have whatever I want.
Hmm.
And I've gotten really good at in my own life deciding what's worth fighting for.
That's huge.
What's worth yeah what's worth putting my time and effort into.
Yeah.
And at this point in my life, most of my effort goes towards my wife and my kids.
Yeah.
So in my business, most of my effort in my business is going towards process documentation, systems building, and being able to how do I create the same and or more revenue unrestricted from my time.
Yes.
So that's where a lot of my work is going into right now. And I imagine that could at some point make the business explode like growth wise. Not there yet. But anyways, that's sort of where how I'm thinking through some of that stuff now.
Yeah. No, it's a very freeing mindset for you to be in, because most people take a lifetime to get there, and it sounds like you found it at exactly the right time. So congratulations on that.
Oh, well, thank you. Sounds like you're doing something very similar. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about the opposite side of your common enemy is your driving force, right? Spider-Man fights to save New York, Batman fights to save Gotham, or Google fights to categorize all the world's information. What is it that you fight for in your business?
In my business or in life? My business?
How about how about both? Start with your business and then your life.
In my business, I fight for access. I have a dream of creating a small world for every entrepreneur that I work with, meaning I want them to feel like there are no boundaries, and that whatever they need, resource wise, money wise, people wise, it's within arm's reach. The 6 degrees of separation thing, it's very real. I mean, we are all very interconnected, and usually, people are one or two contacts away from having the support that they need to take their business to the next level. Again, financially, resource, what have
Yeah,
you. So my driving force is to create that awareness for people, for every entrepreneur that I support, that you can get this. You're closer than you think you are. Let me see what bridges I can create for you, or how I can broaden your perspective so you can see them for yourself, and then move forward and create this empire that you have in your head, and help you execute it.
yeah, that's really awesome because the access thing is something that I've noticed over the years. Like I remember I got started in my business career like 10, 11 years ago, and thinking that you're alone, like, and there it's like just you against the world kind of thing. And 10, 11 years into it, you realize that like the entrepreneur community is small and loves to help each other.
Yeah. Yes.
And all you have to do is ask, and you realize that you're connected to all sorts of things. Like I remember I had a client ask me once. They're like, we buy horses overseas and we bring them over here, and we generally see a 200 to 500% return after training them and moving them out into the marketplace. They use horses as an investment vehicle. And she was like, but I have no idea how to grow that. And I was like, well, I've got some contacts in the real estate space that know how to do equity partnerships and actually build investment portfolios. They usually use real estate as the asset class, but I don't see why you couldn't use horses as the asset class and do the same kind of thing
Oh,
and put a
cool.
pool of investors together. And so I made a few phone calls and connected them. They've got a $500,000 investor pool investing in horses,
That
right?
is
And it was
awesome.
like before the phone call, they were like, "That's not a possibility. That's not a thing." But you can
Yes.
make a few connections, and it happens.
Yes. Yes. It changes everything. And like you said, it's one phone call away. It's one connection that can change everything. And I mean, that's a cool story. That's really, really awesome to think of using horses as an investment vehicle. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, especially like if you ever get a chance to like look into it, like it's a huge business, but not a lot of people approach it like real estate.
Hmm.
Um, so just bringing a little bit of outside perspective and approaching it like a real estate transaction and like a real estate investing pool, it was really cool. And they have a really good return on their investment that they make with the horses. And then they have to your point, you guys, you tell stories, right? Business stories. And I was like, when you're looking to attract investors, everyone at the investor table is sitting there telling about their investment pool they're in, that they have their apartment complex or their building or whatever. How many people around the investor table are talking about the horses that they're investing in that are bringing back a 200, 300% return? No one,
Right. Right.
right? It's a great story. So it's a good pitch to actually bring investors in,
Yeah.
and tell the story. So anyways, it was very cool.
Definitely captivating. Definitely.
Yeah. So other side of that, you said you want to talk about your driving force in your life.
The other driving force is just, as anybody would expect, my family, my kids, my husband. I grew up in a house where, I was alone a lot. People had to work and people didn't have time to be with me as a child. So I want my kids to always see and feel that there's people that love them, that are there, that spend time with them, that prioritize them, and that there's always a way to create solutions when it comes to work and money, and sky's the limit. So those are
How
my
many
driving
kids do you
factors.
have?
I have two,
How old are they?
8 and 10 right now.
Cool. I have four. I have a 9-year-old boy, 5-year-old girl, a 2-year-old girl, and a newborn girl.
Holy cow, congratulations. And you're all in the RV.
We are, and I got a
Okay.
40-foot RV. We're in the RV now. All right, so this is actually a fake background that's
Oh,
hanging up behind me here. We're in the little back bedroom, and my kids have bunk beds up front, and we travel there. We're up here with grandparents' place right now. Like I said, they're gonna go to the zoo afterwards. But yeah, that's a blast. I mean,
yeah.
my I loved my dad growing up and my family. Like we had a good time. We went stuff all the time, but it was predictable. It was like we went places when holidays happened or on the weekends and stuff. And it always bothered me like that I would get home from school and I would be alone for a few hours because I'd wait for my dad to get home from work or my mom to get home from work. And like I didn't want that for my kids. Not like
Yeah.
it was a big deal. I mean, I had a great life, but like it just bothered me. And
Yeah.
I was like, I want to be there, right? I want to be there. If my kid has an early day from school, I want to be able to come home. And I remember when my wife and I decided to have kids, I was like, I have basically one thing that I want to do is that I want to have lunch with my kids every day,
That's awesome.
or at least be able to, because most parents don't get to do that. They might have breakfast or dinner, but lunch was like everyone's working or at school. And in the last 10 years since having my son, I think the number of lunches I've missed, you can count on a couple hands,
Yeah.
and mostly for business events and stuff. So it's definitely, we share that in things that we're fighting for.
Yeah, so you definitely met your goal. My folks just bought a 38-foot RV that I had the joy of driving. So I know
Oh,
that
nice.
that is a very special lifestyle that it's not for everybody. But if it's
No,
for
definitely
you,
not.
it is the most freeing, magical experience you can possibly have. So I love that you're able to do that with your family and that they're in that with you, because it is a phenomenal, phenomenal experience.
It's super fun. I tell people all the time, they're like, oh, I wish I could do that. And I was like, probably not.
Probably
Like you
not.
probably don't wish you could do it if you actually saw the reality of it. But if it's for you, it's super fun. And I
Yeah.
was like, the reality is it's the thing that you like about what I'm doing is the location freedom I have. And you can work on having that type of location freedom without having to force yourself to live in a tiny house and have an RV,
Yep.
right? So how do we work your business in a way that gives you that time and location freedom? So anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot of fun. So next thing I want to talk about, a little more practical, is your hero's tool belt, right? Thor has his big magical hammer. Our police officers have their bulletproof vests. What are some of the things that you use on a regular basis to actually like deliver what you're doing, right?
Hmm.
Like practical tools you use, maybe if it's, I don't know, some of the mental exercises you go through or software you use or actual tools you use to deliver your info.
I don't like being cliche, but there's two. So because I am a bit adverse to hiring and expanding so that my cost structure stays as slim as possible, the number one tools that I use that make my entire business possible, they're Infusionsoft and Calendly. So my scheduling tool and then my emailer. And those allow me to service every single person, whether they're a client or they're a inquiry or they're a prior client. I can set meetings with them, I can email them, I can automate things and create replications of myself without hiring a VA or hiring another team of people to manage all that. And it changed my entire business, and it allowed me to focus on business plans instead of focusing on admin work of emailing and payments and just everything. I automated everything. I think I automated more with Infusionsoft than you're supposed to, but it's changed my life, definitely.
That's awesome. So I totally feel you on that. I actually I got to the point recently where I was like, I need, like, if it can be automated, I automated it. Um, like to the point where like I have a VA who's working on process documents for me, and like I'll record something like, here's how we do a thing. And I knew that if I had to upload that video and I had to assign it to my VA and I had to put links to it into a Trello card or something like that and get it all assigned out, it would never get done, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just not me. So I set it all up and built all sorts of automation. So like when I record something, when I hit the end record button, it automatically uploads. The folder is automatically being watched, and when it sees a new thing get dropped in, it pulls it out, and it automatically
Creates
creates
a card.
the assignments and puts all the things on them, and like automates all the way through. And like then the card has systems on it where like they go through the stuff, and at the end they they finish that checklist, and the last part is like add the next checklist to the thing and move it over to the next place. So like I have an entire system from beginning to end that like I take one action, which is the thing that only I can do, right? So it's like, how do I focus my business on doing the things that only I can do? And then build a process or robot that does everything else, even if there's humans involved. So like automation is my hero. I love automation.
Yes. Oh my God. And it's so freeing when it's your priority, especially, and you can create these workflows that are, you trigger it and the rest of it just happens. That's like I said, that's what changed my life. So you totally get it. You totally 1000% get it. Automation is
Yes,
everything.
I am a huge fan of automation, and I think my biggest breakthrough is figuring out how to include other human beings in automation so that they can take actions and make decisions and move things forward, and it just happens without my involvement, which is brilliant. But I want to make one other point too. For regular listeners of this show, you said something else that I think it's very telling, and you've mentioned Calendly. I think we're on episode like 30 or 35 or something here, and just off your top of your head, what would you say the number of people who I've had on the show who say their calendar is one of the most important things that they use
I'm sure
for their
everybody has.
scheduling thing?
If they're an
It's
entrepreneur,
like
scheduling is everything.
it is the most consistent thing that pops up when I ask that question is their calendaring software. Over and over and over again. It's either their paper calendar, their calendaring software, something to do with their calendar. It appears to me that entrepreneurs live and die by their calendar.
Yes, it's everything. If you don't have clear calendar practices and regiments and understand when things are happening, and then you can't survive. If you have meetings. Now, some people, they don't have a ton of meetings or they don't have too many deadlines, then fine. But I live and die by deadlines. Everything that I have has a deadline.
Yeah.
I have meetings all day, every day. And if I don't have a calendar app that helps scheduling for me automatically, so I don't have to keep juggling, when are you free? I don't know. When are you free? Then I'm dead.
Yeah.
I can't do that 10 times a day, every single day. It's killer, totally killer.
Yeah. And I've had to train some of my clients. They're like, hey, can you get on the phone this afternoon? I'm like, maybe not. My calendar's here.
Yeah. And that's hard for
That's where you
people
go
that
and look.
don't live in that. I have the same, discussion with my clients when they don't live with that schedule restraint. No, you can't just call me. I'm on another call with somebody else that scheduled this 3 weeks ago. I need to focus on this person right now. We can't just get on the phone together ad hoc. So it's a learning process for
Yeah.
some folks, but that way you have time for everybody and everybody gets a slot, and that's your opportunity.
Yeah. And you can get your work done. It allows you to focus better and actually get your work done when you're talking to them. So yeah, calendars are it. I feel like I'm gonna have to take a splice out of every episode and put together like a compilation of entrepreneurs talking about their calendars at some point and be like, so if you're looking to become an entrepreneur, this is the
Yes.
thing.
It'll be just a montage of calendar apps.
Montage of people talking about their calendars and how important they are.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if that's a modern thing as well, because like if you remember what is it, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, talked to a bunch of successful business owners. Calendars is not part of their discussion. Like it's
Right.
not one of the things he talks about in there. And I'm curious if that's just a sign of our times and the technology and how quickly we move, how important calendars are to entrepreneurs today.
Might be. Might be
That'd be
just time.
The Hero Show will be right back.
Are you tired of trying to write webinars that don't consistently convert? How would you like to have a webinar that effortlessly created sales in your online business? You can. Introducing the Webinar Alchemy Workshop. Webinar Alchemy Workshop is an online masterclass that will help you write incredibly persuasive webinars for your online courses quickly and easily. Using what you learn in this class, you can build a webinar that educates your entire audience while still creating sales. For a limited time, you can purchase this masterclass for only $7, and you'll get the exact framework I've personally used to help my clients sell more than $1 million worth of online coaching and training just over the last year. Simply text the word alchemy, ALCHEMY, to 444-999, and I'll send you all the details.
The music is by Purple Planet Music. Visit www.purple-planet.com.
And now, back to the show. Cool. What do I talk about next is some of your own personal heroes, right? So Frodo had Gandalf, Luke had Obi-Wan, Robert Kiyosaki had his rich dad. Who are some of your heroes? Were they real-life mentors? Were they speakers or authors, peers that were just a few years ahead of you? And how important were they to what you've accomplished in your business?
I definitely had some really specific clients that I supported early on that ended up becoming powerful. However, the very, very first one that really is the gateway to all of this is a guy named Jimmy Lewin, and he's an everyday person. But he was the one that actually took a chance on me when I first started off, and he let me take on a business plan assignment that I had no business taking on. It was like they discovered the world's largest underground salt dome, and they needed to figure out how to sell all the salt. I had no idea what I was doing, but I dove into it, and I ended up finding buyers for it. Had Jimmy not taken time to just trust me and work with me, he'd never met me before, I would have never been able to do what I do today. And his belief in me and willingness to just kind of go, hey, Ashley, if you think you can do it, I'll let you do it. And I was like, yeah, I can do it. And, thank God it all worked out. But I always believe that believing in someone is the most powerful thing that you can do for them. And he believed in me, and he's definitely that hero in my life.
That's really awesome. One of the things that it reminds me of something my dad said to me. I remember the context of it was I was asking my dad about getting married. I was like 19 at the time, and I wanted to get married to this girl who I didn't end up getting married to. But I thought I wanted to marry her, and I was like, I don't know if I'm ready. And his response to me was that if you wait until you're ready for anything, you'll never do anything. Right? Sometimes you just have to jump in, because part of the process of becoming ready is taking the actions, is actually doing the things, like doing the work. And that one piece of advice has sort of permeated through my whole life, where I regularly will get into things realizing that part of the process of being ready for something is doing that thing, the experience of doing the thing. And in your case, you're talking about, he gave you that opportunity to make yourself ready when at the beginning you weren't, right? And I think entrepreneurs recognize that. We recognize that part of the process of becoming ready is doing the work.
Yeah. And it's so powerful, and it's irreplaceable. It's not trainable or teachable. You can't go to school and become ready. You've got to do the work. Mm-hmm. That's the only way that you can be ready for it.
Yeah, you got to actually do it. You can't wait for the stars to align. I mean, it doesn't matter how aligned they are, right? You have to actually go through and do the thing. And it helps you be ready, right? And that pops up all the time when people ask, because I've got 4 kids. People ask me about parenting all the time. They're like, oh, I don't think I'm ready for having kids. I'm like, there's no such thing.
You will not be ready after you have them either.
I was like, I got 4 of them. I'm still not ready. I don't know what I'm doing. I tell people my children are my social experiments that I'm sending off into the world.
Yeah, every birthday I say, hey, I succeeded another year. You're still here. I'm so glad to have you. I'm doing great.
You're still here. You still like me, right? Right. I haven't royally effed it up yet. Right. We still have time though. So
anything's possible.
Oh yeah. Man, it is. So let's bring it home for our listeners a little bit and talk about, last thing here, your guiding principles. What are top 1 or 2 principles or maybe actions you use on a regular basis every day that really contribute to the success and influence you enjoy in your business? Maybe something you wish you'd known when you first started out.
That's huge. It might be corny, but that I'm human is something that I'm in the last year or so, kind of, it's my mantra. And that's everything from, I can learn anything, and I believe that I can learn anything if I decide to learn it. And it also means that I am only able to do so much, and I'm going to screw up, and it's okay. I tend to doubt myself and my abilities once in a while as a human being. And I just remind myself, hey, you can learn it. You can learn anything if you decide to learn. So don't let fear be a reason not to do something. And then at the same time, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. And just because, you failed at this doesn't make you a failure. Just because you should look into something doesn't mean that you should execute it after you look into it. So my husband and I are always starting businesses, and, we'll go through a feasibility study and we'll go, should we launch this? No, probably not. We know how to. That doesn't mean we should do it. Maybe looking into it, you decide not to. And anyway, so I'm human. There's mistakes. There's endless possibilities, and just keep that in perspective is kind of my note to self every day.
I like the way you put that too, where I'm human, where it has both of, because most people say I'm human and they think just the negative part of the human condition, right? Where we have failed and we fall and we have problems, but you're like, but there's also the other side of that, where there's so much possibility. I mean, like, we're talking about the same group of people that decided we want to be on the moon, and 40 years later we're on the moon, right? Like, that's the type of people we are. We've built everything you see here on the planet, like all the cool stuff that we do and get to do is, so there's endless possibilities. So anyways, I like that juxtaposition, that, and how, we're human captures that.
Yeah. All the good and all the bad.
Really cool. Yep. All the good and all the bad, it's all there.
And it's okay.
Last thing I do on the show, I do this with all of my clients, or not all my clients, my guests. Clients are the people I have in my business. And all my guests on the show, and you were a result of this, is a hero challenge. Hero challenge is pretty simple. And it's, do you have one person in your network that who you think has a really cool entrepreneurial journey that they should come on and share? Who are they? First names are fine. We can connect for details later. And why do you think they should come share their story on the show?
Oh, geez. There's a lot of amazing people that I work with, first of all, and support and network with. But I would say one of the most inspirational gentlemen that I've supported, his name is Denzel. He is a young entrepreneur who is crushing it. And I can tell you, he's going to be one of those people that has a story where if you knew him before this moment in time, you're very, very fortunate, because he is going to explode. He helps people change their financial picture, get out of debt, find successful, financial health. And he's definitely a hero that you want to connect with, because he is an amazing entrepreneur with a really great story.
Awesome. So I'll have my team reach out to you, and we'll get details for him later. And we make these little challenge videos that we send out. So the last thing basically is, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate having you here. Where can people find you if they are looking to reach out to you, right? If they want to get help with their business plans, and more importantly, who are the type of people that should reach out? The type of people that should reach out and see if you can help them with their business plans.
So you can find me at writtensuccess.co. I will be glad to talk with anybody that has an interest in exploring their vision, launching a business, or looking for funding for a new business idea or for an existing business that's growing. Definitely contact me. You can find me on Facebook, and I am on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. All of it is Written Success, and definitely contact me if you have questions, because I'd love to help and support, if not help you with your business plan entirely.
Awesome. Wonderful. So it's writtensuccess.com. If you are
.co.
Okay. writtensuccess.co. We'll make sure we get that in the show notes for people. So writtensuccess.co. If you are looking to get your business plan written or get an idea off the ground, reach out to Ashley. Obviously, she knows what she's talking about here. It's been really fun chatting with you, Ashley. Really good to have you on the show. Is there any final parting thoughts you have for our audience?
Oh, just keep on moving forward, people. Don't ever stop. If you have an idea or a dream or a thought or a goal, chase the heck out of it until you get to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Ashley.
Thank you, Richard. Take care.